What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Ferrari, the new biopic film from Michael Mann, starring Adam Driver and Penelope Cruz. Yes, Michael Mann is back. His first movie in 8 years. First movie since Black Cat in 2015. It's been a minute. And honestly, Michael Mann is continuing the year of the octogenarian in film. Martin Scorsese, Michael Mann, Ridley Scott, all of our esteemed 80-plus-year-old filmmakers are dropping bangers on our heads to end the year. Because I thought Ferrari ripped. I like this movie a ton. I have a pretty good chance it's going to make my top 10 at the end of the year. Come back for that. And yeah, this movie's coming out on Christmas after premiering in Venice earlier in this year. I was lucky enough to catch an early screening. I'll start with no spoilers and spoil it towards the end. So right off the bat, I really enjoyed the movie. I think what's really cool about Ferrari, besides just Michael Mann making us another movie, which in and of itself sells itself, is that it's a smartly done biopic, which I wasn't really too concerned about. I wasn't really worried about this movie, but this is a movie set in 1957 over the course of like 3 months. This is not the entire life story of this great person. Nope, this is a focus, specific tale, and Ferrari, the movie, is such a better entity as a result of that decision. Also, the casting is great. Adam Driver in the title role as Enzo Ferrari. He's actually 20 years younger than the Enzo he's portraying in this movie. In the film, Enzo is 59, but Adam Driver is, I think, actually able to age up quite well. And Adam Driver, he's a big guy. He has a presence, and he's really able to imbue, I think, that presence, but also that kind of like steely passion that was so famous about Enzo Ferrari. And the reason his workers called him commendatore, it is the presence and the mystique of Enzo Ferrari, the man. Driver's really able to imbue that, and like the way he kind of like walks and lords over the people around him, it's a really great use of Adam Driver's strengths and his talents. This is, of course, another movie with Adam Driver doing an Italian accent after House of Gucci just 2 years ago. And honestly, it's not like the best Italian accent, but he's going for it and it's fun. It's a movie in English almost entirely anyway. It's not a big deal. But yeah, I think he's very convincing. Also, Penelope Cruz as Enzo Ferrari's wife/business partner, Laura Ferrari. Jeez, incredible performance from Cruz. The kind of core crux of this movie, the core crux of that relationship, and the reason they're estranged and kind of at odds is that they've kind of fallen out of love, largely due to the loss of their son Dino due to muscular dystrophy. And Laura is handling that grief in a very different way from Enzo, who's a much more reserved and emotionally contained person, whereas Laura is not afraid to really tell you how she feels. But also, it's a really great, I think, piece of writing, how her character is weaved in to the story, partially due to her attachment to the Ferrari empire on the business side of things. It's much more than just the wife role, and it should be no surprise that a Michael Mann movie has a leading man, and the greatness, but the troubling nature of the brilliance and genius of the man is kind of at the forefront of the movie. That's not surprising to most Michael Mann stories, right? No surprise here at Ferrari. But I think the female characters really fit in well here. And of course, that's Laura Ferrari, his estranged wife, as well as Lena Lardi, played by Shailene Woodley, which of course is Enzo Ferrari's mistress, who he's spending a lot of time with, who also happens to be the mother of his illegitimate son, Piero. And, the kind of the build-up with the movie as Laura learns about this family. She knew he was seeing other women, but she did not know that Enzo had another family hidden off in the countryside, while they're ostensibly living together in Modena, where the Ferrari HQ is. I really like how that works, And meanwhile, of course, it's still a really good movie about a racing team, the Ferrari racing team, and about business. It's coming at a very pivotal point in the story here. In 1957, Ferrari is kind of subsumed by all this debt and is under a lot of pressure and kind of guidance to sell the company to perhaps Ford or even Fiat, of course, the big Italian car company. And there's a lot riding on this upcoming race, the Miglia, which is kind of this like cross country, like kind of like almost rally race across Italy, and the marketing benefits of winning the race and beating the rival cars of Maserati, for example, would really benefit Ferrari financially as a business. So it's kind of like the confluence of Enzo Ferrari's true passion, which is cars and racing as a former racer, and the success of his business that he needs to be able to continue to fund his racing team. So I think all of that like really works pretty well, honestly. And there's a few really memorable, like visceral shots of filmmaking. There's one at the end that's incredibly shocking. I'm going to start to spoil the movie, where you forget or you get reminded of who made the movie, right? I think early on, you see this pretty cool with Ferrari's, one of his test drivers dies during a speed test, and you actually see the body. It's clearly a dummy, but like the body jettisoned way up in the air, watching the guy about to be killed. And it's an introduction to Enzo the man. He's pretty calculating and unapologetic and quick to move on, not someone who kind of dwells on the emotional things. And he's like very quickly hires his new driver, Alfonso de Portago, this young kind of upstart guy. And then on the other side, when we're in the Millie race and we're at the very end, and De Portago, who's kind of been like this young upstart driver who's engendering himself to the Ferrari team, even though he's not the most experienced driver yet, he's doing pretty well in the race towards the end, and then he just kind of has bad luck, hits something in the road, gets a puncture in the tire, flips, careens off to the side, and takes out a ton of civilians, and killing himself, of course, as well. And that moment is like a gasp, jaw dropper type moment. And then the lead up to that, of course, the racing stuff's like really pulsing and fun. It's filmed well. It feels fast. It feels exhilarating. It's really cool to be in these single-seater cars in the 50s. It's a lot different than, of course, Formula One today and another similar racing. Watching the danger of racing back in the day, so obvious as you're watching the movie and watching civilians, spectators being so close to the action. And then you see something go so horribly wrong, and you watch the car flip and just take people out, and you see people get bisected, and including children. Like, it is a pure moment of like ultra violence and despair. And it was a real jaw dropper, but it's incredibly earned, and I think it's played off like incredibly well. It did not feel tasteless in any way. Just through the progress of the movie, like, there's just a lot of awesome scenes, man. Like I mentioned the early test scene, I thought that was great. Seeing Enzo use the press and control the press, and how he talks to the media and interacts with them, really good job of examining who the guy was and how much stature he carried, and how he wielded that, and he was a calculating man, both publicly and behind the scenes. I liked that. I like it's kind of just a throwaway scene. There's a barbershop scene though, where all the locals are shitting on the Modena football team for not being any good, not being the pride of the city. I thought that was hilarious. Early on, there's a really great church scene where you have the priest giving a sermon talking about like how God is like the engine or something along those lines. Meanwhile, Ferrari and all his employees are there in attendance, and they all take out their stopwatch when they hear the test starting gun go off in the distance, and they're just staring at their stopwatch, recording the test in church as you hear the sermon going off. And like, is that on the nose? Of course it is, but to me it was a great scene. And also kind of called back just a little bit to Godfather, when you have the communion scene or confirmation scene, whatever it is, when all the guys are getting whacked. Thought that was pretty fun. I think I had one criticism, I guess. I think like the head of Maserati, like the head businessman of Maserati, and also the head of the team. I believe he actually is named Maserati. I believe that it's the titular Maserati as well. I'm pretty sure. he was a bit hokey, a bit cartoony, I guess you could say. I was curious how accurate it is, like watching like Ferrari and Maserati before the race is about to begin, like giving like specific instructions to all their drivers as they're about to begin. And it's like, don't you have a pre-race meeting like the day before to go over all this strategy? It's all good. It's movie making. They were effective moments, for sure. Silver Fox Patrick Dempsey as kind of the wily veteran on the Ferrari racing team. I enjoyed that performance and presence, even if it's a quite small role. Just kind of an Easter egg for racing fans. Like one of the Maserati drivers is Sterling Moss, one of the greatest F1 drivers of all time. Thought that was pretty cool. Noticed that right away. I really like Penelope Cruz's scenes with the banker at the bank, where she's just, you could tell like the banker is just afraid of her passion and her resolve. And you can tell how nervous he gets when she starts asking questions, getting closer to Enzo's secrets. Thought that was done well. But yeah, I think like the movie just has like a lot of great tension and build up with how the progression of the Ferrari business and the racing progress goes. And also just really, I think, develops and hones in on the triangle of the Ferraris and Lardy. And will Enzo acknowledge his illegitimate son question really coming into focus at the end, and like you're really invested in that decision, and this like really innocent young boy who just wants to spend more time with his dad and doesn't really even know anything is really off. I don't want to say we're at like a golden era of racing movies, not like we're getting a ton of them, but it's been a good run. Ford versus Ferrari 4 years ago from James Mangold, obviously exhilarating film. This movie, Ferrari, Michael Mann, a movie that, by the way, he had been developing since the 90s. The screenwriter of Michael Mann's Ferrari, Troy Kennedy Martin, died in 2009. This movie's been in development a long time. Pretty awesome. But between Ford vs. Ferrari, Michael Mann's Ferrari, and then next year from Apple and Joseph Kosinski, we have the Brad Pitt F1 movie still untitled. Pretty great time if you're a fan. And I think this is both a great example of how to do an inspired biopic, but also it's a great racing movie in its own right. So I think it really has kind of something for anyone. So yeah, Ferrari coming out on Christmas. Let me know when you've seen it, what you think about it. Make sure you come back for my best movies of 2023. And for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.